you a quick little clip. We actually got covered in some of the TV news up here in Canada, and this story just shows you a little bit about Dante's journey throughout COVID. So Curtis, if you are there, we can start the video. Now, I don't have any sound. So
Curtis, there's no sound.
Curtis, I don't know if we can pause that and see if we can get the sound going. All right. Curtis, are you there?
I'll get him, Keegan.
All right. That is Dante when he was a little baby there. All right, we're back at the beginning. I'm gonna try it again. Curtis, I don't know if you were muted.
Monday, what's going on Monday?
His father and son have a lot in common.
Nice.
They both love to work out together.
He loves life, he loves sports, and he loves his family.
And it's the love from his family and their strong bond that helped Dante move through challenging times. When did you start to notice the changes in your son?
He was 3 weeks old, and I'll never forget it because it was actually my 30th birthday. The doctor turned to me, my wife, and he said, "Your son has Prader-Willi syndrome." And he said, "Well, his growth is going to be delayed, his speech is going to be delayed, he's going to have low muscle tone, and he's always going to be hungry."
Dante's constant hunger and low energy made it difficult to manage his weight. And even though he loves sports, trying to motivate him to get active was becoming more and more difficult until March of 2020.
An uncle came over and asked about lowering a weight. And we said, "Hey, Dante, why don't you pick up a weight?" He picked up a 5-pound weight, and he did 10 reps of the bicep curls.
Dante was proud of himself for working out and wanted to keep going. So they connected him with his cousin Mikhail.
Ashley says go.
They started out doing 3 sets of 20 exercises, and they did it for 200 days in a row. Do you love exercising, or do you love the way exercising makes you feel?
I love exercising better. I lost weight. I'm working out every day.
He's lost a total of 50 pounds. And as he started to transform physically, the change in Dante's behavior was dramatic. He became more confident, his anxiety reduced, and his energy levels increased. Do you still feel as hungry as you used to?
I don't ask for food anymore. I'm not hungry as much. I'm happy.
Now he manages everything he eats as well as his own workouts.
It's unbelievable. If you told me this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen in the middle of a pandemic, I wouldn't believe you.
With the help of his dad and cousin Mikhail, Dante's newfound passion turned into a movement.
Let's Go Fitness is an online fitness community for people with diverse needs.
Through Zoom, Dante and Mikhail train and motivate athletes from all over the world to get moving. Who motivated you to get fit?
My dad motivated me to work out.
You think about how difficult it is for all of us to lose weight, to get in shape, to go after our dreams. And here's this kid that has cognitive challenges, that potentially is always hungry, and he's willing to put himself out there and say, "I want to be a personal trainer." He's happy. He has meaning and purpose. Dante is my motivation.
Let's Go Fitness is now working with the Halton Catholic School Board to provide inclusive fitness classes. Dante and his father are also speaking with other boards to expand their services across the province and eventually right across the country. Dante, I know you're watching. Congratulations and keep moving. Alan, I'll send it back to you.
Dante, you're my motivation too.
Let's bring him here.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you, Susan.
All right. There we go. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you, Curtis. We'll just jump back in there. Okay, all right, there we go. So what I'm going to do now is just give you a quick little summary of the story of that journey and really start to highlight, I guess, some of the things that we noticed that worked. And then we're going to go back, as I said, and talk about sort of what's the theory behind this and how can we actually start replicating this in other places and with other people. So as we heard there, for Dante, it literally started right at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was kind of, for a lot of us, it's been, our most challenging time. And what had actually happened is an uncle had come over and actually asked if he could borrow weight. And so we lent him, a 5-pound weight. Dante was there, and we said, hey, Dante, would you like to try working out as well? Or we actually said, do you want to, just try a couple reps? So he picked it up. He did 10 reps of the 5-pound weight. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about. What is that opportunity? How can we present more of these opportunities? And how can we actually start small? Because that was, the beginning of a lot of that. Dante was then connected with his cousin, and they worked out consistently every day. And it ended up being 200 days in a row that he actually worked out. And as he was doing that, we started posting, online about his results and what was going on. And that's when we started getting asked by other people within the community saying, hey, we would love to work out with Dante as well. So we started connecting him with some of the other athletes. They started working out online through Zoom, and that sort of grown into Let's Go Fitness. So let's take a look here, because this, if there's one thing that I think we need to remember, this is it on this slide. And all the rest is sort of the details behind it. How do we actually make this happen? So our role as parents, as providers, as community members, is really to provide the ingredients to grow intrinsic motivation, or exercise in this case. And there's a couple subtle things there. So the first one is, the growing versus building versus creating. I think a lot of times being a parent and definitely working on the exercise side, it's a lot more like being a gardener than being, an architect. So we're not trying to create this motivation. We're not trying to force people to exercise. We're not putting in the specific things to make this happen. We're basically providing the ingredients. Just like if you're growing a plant, you got sun, you got water, you got soil, you provide all those ingredients, and then the plant grows from there. So we're trying to find what are those ingredients for this intrinsic motivation. And if we can actually provide an environment that provides that, then that motivation is going to grow from there. I will say here, pause. If you do have any questions, we're definitely at the end, going to open it up and we can chat on the video. But if you do have questions as we go, just sort of pop them in the chat box there. And then I think Brittany, if you're watching, you can sort of call some of those out to me. We can answer some of them as we go from there.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So where's the theory? So what we're going to talk about is all coming from, or primarily coming from, the theory of self-determination. That's Dr. Edward Decky and Richard Ryan, sort of out of Rochester, and you can see a lot more at selfdeterminationtheory.org. So this is not theory that I've thought of or come up with. It's actually a very well-studied area. And we borrow a lot of that, and it's about putting that into sort of our day-to-day interactions with our athletes. I won't spend too much time on this, but we know a lot, we talk about sort of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So being internally motivated in sort of the actual activity, or the being interested in the activity or the inherent enjoyment of it, versus external motivation, which is sort of doing things because we're forced to, or for the external rewards. So the long story or the short story on this slide is Edward and Decky, they really went and found out a lot of different details related to this. So it's not just purely intrinsic or purely extrinsic. There's sort of a slide there. And for us, sort of as practitioners, we want to look at what are the different things that we can provide to actually move them along closer and closer to this intrinsic motivation phase. The one thing you'll see is that a lot of times on the extrinsic side, you're talking about external controls and regulation. Unfortunately, that's kind of the easiest way to quickly get people to do things that we want them to do. So in a lot of our day-to-day interactions, that's sort of where we can devolve to. But it's really about finding the right ways we can move them along to the intrinsic side. So it really comes down to sort of 3 areas that we want to focus on. So providing autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And we'll walk through each of these in a second. But autonomy is that feeling that the individual, the athlete in our case, really has a choice in actually doing this, and they're willingly endorsing this behavior. We all like to feel like we're in control, we're guiding our own ship, and that's what autonomy is all about. So competence is really just that feeling of mastery, the feeling of being good at something. And a lot of times, our children with developmental disabilities, just being in society, don't get that a lot. And that can be a gap in terms of, feeling like they're actually accomplished at something. So we need to provide that in the modality of fitness and exercise. And the third one is belonging or relatedness. We all want to be a part of something, and maybe more, or as importantly, we also want to contribute to something, not just be a part of something. So it's about how can we actually provide each of these 3 different pieces here related to creating that motivation. Okay, everybody good? Thumbs up, following along? All right. So autonomy, as we talked about, sort of autonomy is our ability to make decisions and have a say in the direction of our lives. So the interesting thing there is autonomy is also really about, making our own failures, because it's like, I want to do it my way, and I have to be able to do it my way, even if I fail. And this is like, as a parent, this can definitely be one of the hardest parts, because like, I know how to do it. I know what you need to do. Just do A, B, C, D, and you're going to be successful. School, fitness, whatever, sports, whatever it is. But we have to provide that autonomy for these athletes in this case to be able to do that. So what does some of that look like? So the first thing there is, this is sort of some of the data talking about consistent positive relations between autonomous motivation and exercise persistence. So if you go through a lot of the self-determination theory, there's going to be study after study that talks about if we can provide this autonomous motivation, it actually results in exercise persisting. So there's a lot of things we can do in a very controlling way to get people to do things now, to get people to do things today, or to exercise, while the program is running. But if we actually want this to go on for more than sort of the first week or 2 weeks or things like that, that's where this sort of autonomous motivation comes into play. So the key there is really providing choice. When, how, what, where. And so this is one of the things that when we were starting with Dante, he started, with 3 exercises, and he did the 3 exercises. And then every week he would add another exercise. And that's where he actually started to have some choice in the exercise. If it's like the athletes show up and it's like, okay, here's the exercises you're going to do. I'm going to tell you exactly how many reps to do, exactly what weight to provide. All of a sudden, we're completely taking their autonomy away. And it's like they're just following along, and they will do it to a point, or they'll do it till they stop being supervised and forced to do it. So it's really trying to find all the ways. If you're working one-on-one with an athlete, this is obviously a lot easier. As you start getting into a group, you have to find a lot more creative ways to do that. So definitely looking at the different exercises. So who is going to pick the extra exercise that we're going to do today? And you can just rotate through the group, but that's a nice, easy one to do. Also, the athletes do need to have some sort of say in terms of the amount of exercise, things like weights and repetitions. And we also bring into a lot of sort of the counting and taking turns. So today, Mike might be able to count the reps that he's doing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and tomorrow it's Sarah. The next one, and we'll talk a little bit about this later as well, is really providing some form of meaningful rationale. So again, typically we'll just tell people to exercise. We know that there's long-term fitness benefits. We know it's going to help with their sleep, with their cognition. They're going to increase muscle. They're going to, increase their weight loss, but it's really starting to find out for that specific athlete what's important to them in terms of exercising, because it may not be what's important to us. And if we're working with, in this case, our athletes with developmental disabilities, we may not just be able to ask them what's important to you. Maybe we could do that with typically developed, and with some athletes that will work, but we need to start to get to know that athlete and then start to provide that rationale for them in the words that they would use. So, hey, they may be really interested in sports. Oh, I understand you're interested in sports. LeBron works out, he's able to play basketball better by doing that. And then the athlete, that may resonate with them, and we start to show them that that's sort of one of their meanings for doing that. Two other kind of important pieces here is some of the things that don't work, or don't always work, I should say. Gold stars, conditional positive praise, arbitrary rules, and obviously food rewards can end up being very controlling. So those are ways that we can get athletes to do things right away. But by doing that, we're actually taking away their autonomy. The conditional positive praise was one that really stuck with me, and I had to think about that a lot, because we know there's a lot of research that talks about the benefits of positive praise, and we like to be very positive with our children, with teams that I coach. But the key thing there is when that positive praise becomes conditional, it actually can become controlling. Because if I'm only giving you positive praise when you do what I want, then effectively I'm using that again as a control mechanism. I'm only giving you, my relationship when you do exactly what I want. So that's can be a tricky one that we need to play with. So the positive praise needs to be focused more on, specific outcomes that athlete is already invested in, what's meaningful to them, and not something that's conditioned on I like it or I don't like it. And coaches run into this problem a lot, because coaches, they like doing things a certain way, and they make that positive praise condition on that. And the last point, and I'll just pause here for a second, is this is really important. The teachers, the providers, the coaches, the trainers need to be autonomously motivated themselves. And this is something that we really miss a lot of the times, because if I'm showing up to this job because it's my job, if I'm showing up because I have to clock in and get this done, and I need to get this child to exercise for this 30 minutes, already I'm in a very precarious position. It's gonna be very difficult for me to now stop and allow that athlete to have space to grow, to make mistakes, to have choice, because I need to get them to do these 10 jumping jacks before the end of this session. And now everything that comes out in terms of my phrasing, my terminology is going to be conditional. It's going to be controlling. It's going to be rigid. Even if it sounds like I'm doing all the right things, the athletes are going to pick that up. So, again, for any of the group home providers that are out there, that's the one thing that even before we start talking about the workout program, you have to look at how are we actually providing an environment where our trainers, if you like, are autonomously motivated for showing up before we even start talking about the athletes there. So I'm going to pause.
One question that's in the chat here: how should you respond if the individual protests having to take turns?
Yes. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is a lot of what you guys are probably doing day to day in sort of general behavior management, right? So what we say is we get a picture of where we want to go. So we know what we want to provide this autonomous support. And we know that taking turns is going to help us to do that. Then it comes down into our bag of tricks in terms of behavioral strategies to get there. So the first thing is the more we can talk about what's going to happen before it actually happens. We know when things change, that's a big problem. So if the athlete knows that we're going to be taking turns before we all of a sudden start taking turns, they can get a little bit more space and time to be able to make that change. We definitely find when we start doing workouts the first couple workouts take a little bit longer, but we're really focused on learning the routine. So we start with a warm up, 3 sets of exercise and a cool down. And in between the sets of exercise, we have a chat time where we're actually starting to learn about the other athletes. They're starting to take turns even talk about their successes. And just going through that could be it for the first session. We start the athletes in smaller groups so they can actually learn all these things like taking turns. And then we put them into larger groups when they start to get a lot more comfortable with doing those things. So yeah, definitely great question. So pre-instruct in terms of taking the turns. A lot of times we may, and I know we do this a lot with Dante, have a rule that starts next time. I found this as super, super successful, because if I didn't pre-instruct, and sometimes, we're going out somewhere and I forgot to talk about it, but in my mind, I know that's a rule, and maybe the taking turns is that. And if I just tell him we're taking turns, but now I force him into that, now we're going to have a meltdown. So sometimes I'll say, you know what, Dante, like you're right. So this time we're going to do it this way because we didn't talk about that. And next time we're going to have taking turns. And you know what? A lot of the times that's sufficient, and he's ready to go. And you guys will have, I'm sure, a number of other sort of in your bag of tricks. So thoughts regarding cardio versus strength training. So great question. So 2 things I'll say there. So first of all, this is sort of starts at any exercise program. Make sure we're talking to your physician in terms of, any changes to your exercise routine. So it is going to depend on the specific athlete and what their goals are and what their starting position is going forward. In general, what we find is that starting with the strength training is easier. So a big part of our goal here is it's about creating a lifestyle. It's not about how do I change the fitness over a month or even over 2 months. So my thinking is less, do I need to do cardio or do I need to do strength training to get this athlete to change their fitness right now? But more, how can I leverage this to create that intrinsic motivation for exercise? And because once you get that, we know athletes and all of us, if we're exercising over time, we are going to get those benefits. But the question is, we stop doing it because we don't have the intrinsic motivation to do that. So long way of saying, if I have an athlete where cardio is easier for them or they've done before, then that's something that we can start with. We provide fitness classes, we provide yoga classes, now we're doing cardio classes. So again, that's part of that autonomy. If that's something that the athlete is physically able to do, is interested to do, then let's go with that. We can always increase the other areas. But we have found that sometimes the strength training is just easier for the athlete to do. It's easier to break it down because you can do one exercise. It's not about running for 10 or 20 minutes, and you can change the weights. You can start, we have a lot of athletes start with even just water bottles. That's a big one, especially with the pandemic. It's always about what sort of our fitness, what are we going to use? A lot of times just having water bottles that they can put in their hands allows them to do all of our exercises moving around, and we don't have to go out and get weights. And eventually they're going to move up, but it's just about getting something to have that resistance so they can feel it out. Okay, so any other questions? 7-minute workout, start with an app. Yes, it's whatever can work to get that athlete doing. It's we'll talk a little bit later, but starting small is huge. We're not doing massive workouts at the beginning. It's very, very small to get going. So 7-minute workout, 10, 15, whatever it is. We do find, and we'll talk about it later, that interpersonal response is really important for all of us, but also these athletes. So that's sometimes where that in-person experience is important. Okay, so here we go. So this is Dante doing his decline push-ups, and this is as we move sort of into the competence section, the background to this is when Dante started, he couldn't do one push-up. Even on his knees, he couldn't do one push-up. So he had a lot more weight, and especially in the chest area was very, very weak. So now for him to fast forward and be able to do multiple decline push-ups was just a huge physical transformation. And on the competence section, the thing is, all of us love to feel good about doing things well. It's, again, these three things, and they've studied these across fitness, across education, across business, across sports. These three things are the three ingredients to motivation, no matter what you're doing. And you should think about using these in whatever it is that you want to do or you want to get motivated about. You should start thinking in terms of how can I provide autonomy, competence, and relatedness for myself. We love to feel good about doing things, and that's the competence here. And our children with developmental disabilities sometimes in society don't get to feel good about being good at something. They're told a number of times, whether it's, not necessarily directly, although sometimes it happens, but indirectly by society, they are told they are not good, they're not valued, they're not good at anything. And they're sort of told, oh, we're going to do this for you, we're going to help you, we're going to do, and all of those things are great. And we help our children, as much as we can, but we need to find a way that they can feel good about doing something well. And so one of the things that we found worked really well is when we started, like I said, Dante picked up that, and it was a 5-pound weight, and he did 10 bicep curls, and that was it. But what happened is he completed the workout, and that was the message to him. Oh, congratulations, you completed a workout. What? And he was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, no, that was just a workout. That's what you did. And so all of a sudden there was that little bit of, oh, I could do that. And once we get that, that's like the first grain of sand, then we can build on that. Because if he does, 10 sets of the 10 reps of that 5-pound weight, then next week we can do, or the next day we can do 2 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10. We can build. So that's one of the most important pieces in terms of competence. And so what competence brings, what the value to the person with the developmental disability is, really learning that I can change. And I know it sounds simple, but that is one of the most important things. Dante learned that he could change first some of the extrinsic things, like he was, doing 3 sets, he was doing 5 exercises, 6, 7, 8, whatever it was. Then he learned he could change his body characteristics, because he actually started to notice that his muscles changed, that he said, I can move better, I can run better, he can go up the stairs. So he noticed that he was doing these things that was changing his body. Then he said, and this we'll touch on it briefly later, he actually said he wanted to change his diet to lose weight, right? So, and yes, this is coming from someone with Prader-Willi syndrome, and no, we haven't changed, Prader-Willi syndrome itself. But he said, if I can change these things, I actually want to change some of these other things. I want to change my weight. I want to change my diet, because he learned that he can change. And he did that by that competence support, learning on the smallest instance that he can change something. Now, interestingly enough, and this is where I get really excited, because it's really just the beginning. So Dante, when he talks, can be difficult to understand. He is somewhat tongue-tied, and also has problems with the muscle tone in terms of his tongue, and a lot of the area there. So after he was doing all these things, and because he was starting to see the success and learning that he could change some of these things, he came to us and he said, Mom, Dad, sometimes people don't understand me. And so we said, okay, we talked about that. And he said, well, how can I improve that? And then that was just sort of, we were blown away. Now he's onto his own personal development journey. So now he's actually going through, and we're seeing an oral muscular therapist and an oral surgeon, and some of those things. He's doing what he calls his tongue exercises 2 times a day. in order to improve something that's important to his life. And that's the value of really nailing this I can change piece of work. So the next thing when we're talking about competence is exercise is a great environment to learn this, because we can provide what we call the optimal challenge. So, and this comes back to the self-determination theory. We're motivated humans by finding that right level of challenge. If it's too hard, we're just going to give up, right? And if it's too easy, we're bored. And we're all like this. This is not something that's unique to one person or the other. But exercise, you can clearly modulate the level. You can do more reps, you can do more weight, whatever it is. So finding that medium work, and if we have anyone who has children in the school age, that's really important as well, to find that medium work level. Differentiation. So there's a lot of different ways to do this while we're supporting competence. And I won't get into a lot of that right here, but every exercise can be substituted. You can find a new exercise, you can change the level of difficulty, the weights, the reps, whatever it is. And from a provider point of view, I feel like a lot of our job in supporting competence is really just highlighting the progress, calling it out whenever we see it as many times as we can. Oh, you only did, you did 5 reps last time, you did 10 this time. Congratulations, good for you. I can't believe that you made that difference. Goals can be tricky. Goals can be very motivating. They can also be very demotivating. So what we found is the easiest way here is to focus a lot more on sort of attendance goals rather than performance goals. So the challenge with performance goals is we're all going to start and say, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds or 40 pounds, which becomes, very difficult, to achieve right away, and we may never get there. So if we're going to do a performance goal, and there was times where Dante was saying, hey, I want to lose another 5 pounds, we just really slim them down. So it's something we actually know we can accomplish. Let's lose 2 pounds. And it's something that we can lose 2 pounds in 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be this week, or let's lose 2 pounds. Then we can build from there. But we really like to focus more on sort of attendance goals. It's something that we can control a little bit more. The other thing with competence, it's finding that optimal, but a lot of times we'll fall off into being unsuccessful, and then that just spirals. So again, if we're talking sort of to typically developed, we ask people to anticipate what problems could occur and how can you pre-plan to handle for that. Our athletes can't always do that, so we have to do that for them. So we were very concerned when Dante started working out, and he got in his head and he started doing it every day, up to 200 days in a row. But what's the problem with that? Eventually you're going to miss a day, right? So if you're targeted to I work out every day, eventually you're going to miss a day. And so that's where we had to sort of pre-plan for that and say, okay, well, hey, he's a big basketball fan, so a lot of our analogies are basketball. Kawhi is always load managing, LeBron set out for a game. So, that's Dante. You don't have to do it today, but at some point, that's going to be important for you to do your little load management. So we're pre-planning for him. So that's another thing that you want to do and start looking at, especially when you start talking about schedules. And this is stuff that I know you guys do every day. But understanding how what's coming up is going to affect your exercise routine and pre-plan for that for the athlete. Okay, so I'm going to pause there again, see if we have any questions. And Brittany, I'm also going to just ask in terms of a time check. What are we, how are we doing with, how much
We have about 15 minutes left.
Okay, awesome. Any questions?
I'm watching chat and for hands. So if people have their hands up too, that's okay.
All right, so we're going to get moving here. So the last one is relatedness. Super important. This is some of the data here. People who experience positive relatedness relations, were more engaged in exercise, more autonomously motivated, and able to sustain this over time. And people like to exercise if they look forward to seeing friends, and this is important, believe the instructor likes them. So Dante was connected with Mikhail, who's seen here, who's his cousin, who actually had the time and worked out with him every day at 11:30. So that relationship with someone that he respected, someone that he was connected to, someone who believed in him, and someone who was there consistently for him was huge. In addition, this is actually a picture from his 150th workout. And we had what we called as a celebration workout. So this is where it was again through Zoom. And when athletes get to 150 workouts, they can invite their friends, their family to come into that Zoom workout with them and see what they're doing. And the key there is, you know what, my other son, he plays, rep basketball and sports, and we do this naturally, right? It's like, oh, you're going to a tournament. Everyone's coming to the tournament. Let's see what's going on. He's learning that his activities are valued by the community. We need to provide that to these athletes, to know that their community that's around them values what they're doing. Again, Dante was lucky. He had Mikhail, my father, so Dante's papa, works out consistently. So he knew in his community that this was the thing that was valued. So we as providers need to go out and make sure we provide that to each of our residents, to know that whether it's their direct family or their caregivers value exercise. And this is important, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it's not just valuing their belonging. So we have to value them as belonging to the community. You belong to this community that's working out, but also value their contribution. And this is an important distinction, because we all like to be a part of something, but we also like to be needed by the community. So you're not just a part of it, but I'm doing all this stuff for you. We love to help other people. So we really focus a lot in those conversations, not just like for the athlete, what is it that you're doing that's actually helping other people? So whether you're counting, whether you're leading, you're now helping people within the community. And even just by showing up, you're saying an example we highlight to them, you set the example for these other people to come and work out. So now they're actually valued by this community. And sometimes the tough thing is really, being the change. So our family is healthy was where a lot of this started. So the community, and this is the group home, the providers, the more they're exercising in their day-to-day lives, that's going to make a difference. Because it's not just something that you as an athlete go out there and do, it's something that our whole community does and values. All right. So 5 keys. So we talked about the theory, and we're going to get into sort of 5 specific things at a high level that we can do to help this go along. So start small. We talked about this, but if there was one specific thing, it's just, I would say, actually just start small. Pick the smallest thing that they can do today and call it exercise, call it a workout, whatever it is, but that's it. Now you've started. And now you're going to come back and go from there. But start small, start small, start small. Whatever. Dante went for a jog the other day and he jogged for, I don't know, maybe 50 yards. But that's it. He jogged. There we go. We're jogging. Tomorrow it could be 60. Maybe it could be 100. But that's how we have to get started. So building habits. We hear a lot about habits, and I'm not going to get too much into the psychology of that, but we know that's important, and especially for our athletes. But I also call out habits here can be a lot of different things. So one, it can be a routine. So, same time every day or same times during the week. So I know this is what we're doing. It can also be and should be within the workout. So like I said, we got the warm up, the three sets, talking in between, and then the cool down. So I'm used to that. That's something that I'm doing. But also building into those ceremonies. So the celebration workout is a ceremony, and we start to expect that at 150 workouts for other athletes. We actually give t-shirts away at 100 workouts. But again, that's something that, it's the same thing, honestly, as like Thanksgiving and Christmas. We get into these routines within our community. Those are habits. This is what our community values. When we see other athletes going through that, now we're expecting that. Now this is what we're doing. So when I get to 25 workouts, I get an interview. You'll see some of the pictures where we take pictures of the athletes when they get to 10 workouts and things like that. So now we're building this whole set of habits and ceremony around fitness, not just saying go out and work out on your own. Develop a growth mindset. And again, you could probably have a whole session on this. And I know a lot of our psychologists have talked about this, but it's really comes down to, the fixed mindset is here's my abilities and they can't change. Whereas the growth mindset is talking about your abilities can be developed through effort and persistence. And this is, I think, really, really missed within the developmental disability community, where we're kind of saying, well, this is, your ability level, and you're sort of stuck at that. There are, whatever those levels are, we may not be changing as much as other people, but there's things that we can do to change our outcomes. And the athlete needs to learn that on or experience that on some level. And once we can get that through, we can do this, like I said, by doing 5 and then 6 and then 7. They start to understand that they can have this growth mindset, that they can make a change in themselves, and then everything sort of flows from there. If you haven't noticed, that's a huge point that we need to I need to underline. So I got a word on food, and again, this could and will be a whole session. Food is obviously, top of mind for our people with PWS, and has a huge impact on health and fitness. So Dante, like I said, he decided he wanted to make the change. We changed his diet, and that was with him sort of saying, yes, he's totally on board for that. Specifically, we did sort of a modified Whole30. I'm not talking about that right now because I think different diets can work, but he bought into that. He makes great food choices, and he has lost 50 pounds. At the same time, the doors to our kitchen are locked. So there are, specific food restrictions, precautions that are taken, but he is completely bought into, endorsed, and asks us to do that for him because he wants to attain his goal, and that's the support that he needs from us to do that. And cultivate meaning. So, and I know we're coming to the end here, but this is really a next level type of thing here, where, as you guys know, sort of once you finish high school, a lot of times it can be sort of dropping off the cliff. And, for someone with a developmental disability, where's the meaning in my life? What are we talking about in terms of a job? How am I going to pay for everything? What am I going to do with my day? So that's a gap that needs to be filled. And when Dante started helping people, we talked a lot about, well, you're just helping people, you're helping people. And he came to me and he said, so if I'm helping these people, what type of job is that? And I said, oh, well, that's a fitness trainer. And he said, is being a fitness trainer a good job? And I said, being a fitness trainer is a great job. And he said, I think I want to be a fitness trainer. And so that's where, in my mind, I said, I think we need to create a program so you can be a fitness trainer. And that was really the beginning of Let's Go Fitness. But what it's gone to is we actually now have 5 other assistant trainers like Dante, who are now creating this new job pathway for them to train different people. So now they have this new meaning and new opportunity. And we're doing full-on job training with them. I'm really excited about this, and we haven't announced it yet, so I guess this might be kind of the announcement. But we're just promoting our next role, which is an assistant community manager. So we have an athlete who attended all the workouts from one of the first classes, was super involved. We talked a lot about fun, friends, and fitness, super social. On the fitness side, she attended the workouts, but that really wasn't her thing to be a fitness trainer or anything like that. But here's another way that she can participate in that community, where now she's showing up, she's doing some of the announcements for us, she pops into classes, hey guys, I want to introduce you to Mike, who's a new athlete to the community. And now we're doing job training for her to be an assistant, to be a community manager for the community. So it's about how can you build this meaning into this whole workout experience. I can go super quick through this. So tips and tricks, a lot of these are just the things that you do every day. You're going to use those in your workouts, right? Providing structure, providing preferred choice. Reducing transitions was a big one. We do all our classes online, and we just find that really, really helps because we can just get rid of the whole, get everybody from A to B and back. They can just pop into a workout, do their 30 minutes, and parents love it because it's independent. So we have athletes who can just go onto our app, get into the workout. So long way of saying, if the more you can reduce those transitions, simplify, and I do want to call out Dr. Forrester, Dr. Grash, and Elizabeth Roof. So a lot of the things that we do, we've just learned at other PWS conferences from a lot of the amazing, and those are just a few of them, providers that talked about all the things that you guys do day in and day out. That needs to be a part of this. Outside of sort of the general, rewards, be very selective with them, only reinforce their accomplishments, not as external motivators. So we do provide t-shirts when they get to 100 workouts, but that's now a celebration of what they've accomplished, not if you do this, you're going to get a gold star, which can be very controlling. We talked about attendance versus performance rewards, and words matter. So watch out and rephrase for the athletes any of their self-defeating wording. So you're going to hear they're going to say, I can't do this, I'm not good at that, and help them provide the words that, well, you're learning how to do this. That's amazing that you learned how to do this, and get them to talk about their fitness journey. So the more that they can start to own this, again, their motivation is going to improve. And the last one, talk about your failures, talk about your mistakes, and that's why I know I've talked about that in the bio, but so many times I think this is always, I've started businesses and that have gone absolutely nowhere. I have a negative golf drive, literally got up, hit the golf ball, and it hit off the front of my foot and went 10 yards back and was on the opening tee drive. Yeah, everybody was laughing. Just mistake after mistake after mistake. And I think we really need to normalize that, and especially for our children with developmental disability, because what we notice is when they see our assistant trainers as the trainers, they just relate to them right away, right? It's not, oh, there's that guy with the six-pack abs, bench presses 250 pounds, like I'm never going to do that, so why am I going to follow him, right? So we have assistant trainers like Dante or others. Sometimes the assistant trainers, all they're doing is counting. They're able to count from 1 to 10. That's great. We have trainers who can make sure there's safety and form and everything like that, but people really need to be able to relate to them. So results, and I'll do this super quick. Like I said, we're working with multiple school boards now. We started out with Halton, but we actually have agreements in place with 3 different school boards where our assistant trainers are going in 2-3 times a week and training these classes for 30 minutes, 40 minutes in terms of fitness. We're starting to partner with different camps as well, community groups, and yes, our first partnership in the top right there is Latham Center, who've just been fabulous to work with. I think we've learned from them now and even before. And a lot of the behavior stuff, sort of the hands-on stuff, is things that they're doing day in and day out with their athletes. So commend them on that, and we just love working with them. And maybe the most important part, or is the most important, is just the athletes. Like we get comment after comment from athletes and from their parents, like just saying, this is fun. They love meeting friends. We have, new boyfriends and girlfriends things going on. And it's, that fun, friends, and fitness. And Aspen, absolutely loves the classes. And parents are saying, I can't believe that they want to do this. Like every day they're going on. Sometimes we used to tell them, like, you can't work out more than once a day. Like, because we run classes all the time. And so you can't do that anymore. We've got to slow down. Like you got to load manage. And Shay here, she said, in the top right, she used to see a chiropractor. Now she's, her back pain has gone away. And she's amazing because she's now one of our assistant trainers as well. And she said to me the other day, no one has ever given me this opportunity, where she's actually now teaching other athletes in schools, 5 provinces away. And it's just been amazing. So I'm going to stop chatting there.
We have 2 questions for you.
Questions.
I know we have like 3 minutes left, so real quick. You mentioned that you want to spread your business worldwide. Do you have any connections in Winnipeg, MB, that is teaching this philosophy? That's out in Canada.
Yeah, sorry. The question part was Winnipeg. I just missed
do you have any connections in Winnipeg that's teaching this philosophy?
No, we do
not yet, right?
Not yet. With that, we do everything through Zoom, and most of the way that this works is, if we have an athlete or a group home or a school, we just set up a meeting with them and then we start training them. it's we've got the process down now, and my contact info is there. But even if you don't want us to do the training, you just want to bounce some questions off in terms of how you could get this started, in your group home, in your organization, in your school. I'd love to just sort of chat and give you any of our ideas, because I think there's a huge opportunity to make a significant change there. Yeah. Oh, super quick. Say hi.
Hey,
How are ya?
Dante.
Good.
Good. Awesome work over there.
Mhm. Nice job.
I think he just finished a workout. Now he's going to do some schoolwork. So.
Nice. And then real quick, the last question in the chat there. Are there chair exercise programs for people in wheelchairs or older adults?
Yes. So, so we have a number of athletes. We have athletes now with cerebral palsy. So we modify, sometimes they can use the right side and not the left side. We have other athletes that are in wheelchairs who can only do, arm exercises. We also just started a seniors program. So we have a small group of seniors that are working out, again, on a modified workout. And that's one of the great things, is that it's relatively straightforward to modify once you actually take the time, at the beginning to say, what are the abilities and what can we do?
Awesome,
Great.
Keegan. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Awesome. Well, no, I'm glad to help. This community has been just amazing. Like I said, from researchers to, when we're working with Latham, to parents. And, we feel that we've had a lot of opportunity and privilege to give Dante this opportunity, and we're seeing the results. And it's just because of all the people that have helped us, like from top to bottom. And so we'd love to help as many other people and start to provide those opportunities in that community to as many people as we can. Like I said, and whether it's with Let's Go Fitness or you just want to ping me and get some thoughts in terms of how you could get it going, on your own, we're super happy to do that as well.
Thanks, Keegan. Really appreciate it. And we will see everyone back on the new link at 1:45.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.